From the Watchbox studios, this is On Point on Watchbox with Cynthia Hardy.
Good morning and welcome to On Point on Watchbox. It is a pleasure to bring you this show each and every week, and I do hope that you will take the opportunity to tune into the radio show On Point with Cynthia Hardy that's heard every Sunday evening, 6 p.m. on 101.3 The Big DM. Today on Point on Watch, the political landscape, implications of the South Carolina Republican presidential primary on the rest of the country, and the President's State of the Union address. Newt Gingrich pulled off a decisive win in South Carolina at the Republican primary, sending the Republican establishment that largely supports Mitt Romney scrambling as the contest heads to Florida. And with that as a backdrop, the president delivered a State of the Union address that seems to have resonated with Americans, evidenced by new approval numbers fueled largely by independents that Republicans are hoping to capture. With that, President Obama has now officially launched his campaign for re-election in 2012 and went on a 5-state tour while Gingrich and Romney duke it out for the Republican frontrunner position. It's very interesting how we are seeing this, and I'm sitting here with Brian McConkey of Watchbox News, and it's been really interesting to see how South Carolina politics actually has impacted the rest of the country.
It was very interesting just to see how everything played out last Saturday because of the double-digit lead that turned into a double-digit loss. And now, and you go look at the polls now in Florida and flip-flopping leads there again, where it's some polls show you it's a big lead for one guy, it's a slim lead for another.
Right.
So every day it's a different story. So that tells you about the reliability of polls, I guess.
I guess it does. But I tell you one other thing too. When you look at the President's State of the Union address, it's interesting because those numbers went way up. And in the meantime, what you've got going on in Florida are the two front runners duking it out for that coveted position. So it's almost as if the attention there has been diverted. At least it just seems as if more attention needed to have been paid to what the president was doing, but the Republicans appear to be occupied somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very important address that we hear from the president the other night, and very lengthy, covered a lot of different subjects, and it played well to some people. Others were saying that he didn't sound like the same president that he used to sound like, that he had somehow changed his tune on some issues, but that's why we bring in our guys here today.
Speaking of our guys, Adam Piper, Republican, and Sam Johnson, Democrat, thank you both for being here today.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the presidential primary that was here in South Carolina and how everything went. Of course, Newt Gingrich came into the state as number 4 in a 4-man race and left the state as the winner. How'd that happen?
The debate in Myrtle Beach on Monday, the debate in Charleston on Thursday were big shots in the arm for him. You saw Speaker Gingrich having crowd applause to the nines. For the first time, the second time, and the third time since 1980, a candidate for president got a standing ovation during a Republican debate. Newt Gingrich got that in Myrtle Beach and in Charleston. It helped him. We saw in Florida this week a debate where Newt Gingrich had no crowd applause. The crowd had to be given Xanax or whatever else to make them be quiet, and it truly hurt the speaker, and it helped Governor Romney.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a little bit more simple than that. Honestly, you look at it, this has been a soundbite election. You look at, of course, President Obama on the Democratic side. You've got a plethora of choices that I don't think we really have a strong hold on who we want to be the clear front runner. Of course, it's kind of been shuffled a little bit. It's gone back and forth. Of course, we had Newt Gingrich, who came in looking like he was going to be almost down and out, and came away with a win here. But you look at it, I think it's hard to really determine, who do we want. So when we go to these different debates, as Adam alluded to, the applause ends up being percentage points. It ends up being percentage points.
Brian, the president now has a surge in his approval ratings. How much of that do you think is support for his job performance or backlash from what's happening in the Republican field? That's an interesting question, isn't it?
It is an interesting question. It could be a little bit of both because still, when we look at it, jobs aren't where we need them to be, and they're still not even where they were a couple of years ago in terms of overall numbers. There's been a tremendous amount of loss that needs to be built back up. Yes, it's getting better even in this state. Our jobless rate has dropped now for a 4th straight month, but same as nationally, it's nowhere near where we need it to be. So maybe people are seeing some signs of improvement. I don't know, or they're hoping that it's just going to keep on getting better.
A lot of people were kind of disgusted about the fact that the Republicans came into the state, duked it out the way that they did, caused trouble, and then left town. Let's hear some reaction to both of you all about that.
I was getting my hair cut today, and my hairdresser made a great point. The circus was in town, not only politically, but also Ringling, but also the Barnum Brothers.
So you admit
the circus was in town, but it was a fun circus. It was great for the economy. More than $13 million in TV ads spent in South Carolina helping stations like WACH. Another $10 million or so spent on lodging and food and other talent, and probably a couple more $1 million spent on phone calls and mail pieces that annoyed voters in their mailboxes and on their answering machines. It was great for the economy. It was great for South Carolina, and it's great to have the reputation of picking presidents and nominees, whether it's Republicans or Democrats alike.
Oh, I definitely agree, and I like to echo Adam's comments and sentiments on that. I'll tell you one thing that I remember from the debates more so than anything else, and this probably goes to the content, the substance of them. But the sandcastle, they had the sandcastle, of course, where they had the different presidential candidates' images. But I agree, it was great for the state, great opportunity for the state. Unfortunately, I think we have an opportunity to pick someone to run against President Obama, and we don't necessarily have a good substantive discussion where we can really get to the bottom of the issues and really determine who is the best person for the job.
You know, we had a lot of money spent with media, but there wasn't a lot of money spent with non-mainstream media, minority media, and I like to throw that out there. Less than 1% of that was actually spent with non-mainstream media. I just like to throw that out there because, you know, I own a radio show, you know, throw a sister a bone, you know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
So Adam, go take that back next time, all right? All right, let's talk a little bit more in this segment, wrap this segment up about the presidential primary. And, you know, a lot of the pundits out there are saying Newt can't win. Can he win?
I think he can. I think in a debate with President Obama, Newt Gingrich can take him to school. I think he will contrast his vision for the future with what the president has done. Ronald Reagan used to ask, how far have we come in 4 short years? With President Obama, unemployment is up from 7% to 8.5%.
Sam was being real polite. He ready to get you.
And the national debt, more importantly, Sam and I are part of the national debt generation. And the national debt has gone from $10.6 trillion at the T to $15.2 trillion.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with Newt Gingrich winning?
First, I'd like to say thank you to George Bush. Secondly, seriously, you asked 2 questions. You said, can Newt win in the primary?
Yes.
I think, unfortunately, I think he can. And that is a shame for the country. Unfortunately, you got someone who's been censored as Speaker of the House.
Why is that a shame?
You got someone who's been censored as Speaker of the House. You've got someone who has worked for Franny and Fanny, who's worked for the healthcare industry, and then at the same time coming back, almost like Flip-Flop Mitt. And is now
put that in there, yeah. Flip-flop Mitt.
And is now,
He's got more time.
And you got Newt that's coming back now and is singing a different tune, which is great. And I think we're having a great discussion. Now, can he win in the general? I don't think so. I think we saw one of the most historic State of the Union addresses that our country's ever seen.
In fact, in the next segment, we're going to be talking about the State of the Union address. It's really interesting because after the State of the Union address, it appeared that is what fueled that bump that the president got. So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversations about the implications of the South Carolina Republican presidential primary on the rest of the country and the president's State of the Union address. You guys stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on Watchbox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own Watchbox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on Watchbox. Brian and I have been talking about the implications of the South Carolina Republican presidential primary on the rest of the country and the president's State of the Union address. Brian, I think now's a really good time for us to turn our attention to the president's State of the Union address.
It's time to apply the same rules from top to bottom. No bailouts, no handouts, and no cop-outs. An America built to last insists on responsibility from everybody.
So the president's State of the Union address seemed to resonate with a whole bunch of people. Adam, I don't know if you were in that whole bunch of people, though.
In your intro, you talked about it being a campaign kickoff, and it was not a State of the Union. It was a campaign announcement speech for re-election. And you have to ask yourself, what is the State of the Union right now? And it's not too good. Our national debt is at record numbers. Unemployment's at record highs. And you have to say, how can we have a pro-prosperity president, not a pro-poverty president? And all the president wants to do is grow government and grow government and grow government programs. The government does not create jobs. Government does not create capital. Businesses and people do.
What do you guys think about the Republican Party tying the president to poverty, pro-poverty president, food stamp president?
That soundbite we just heard plays right into the speakers, the
It
former
does.
speakers'
It
soundbite
does.
that we've been hearing a lot about is the food stamp president.
It does. So what are you thinking? What's your thinking on that, Sam?
Well, I'll tell you, I agree. The president can't be someone who's pro-poverty or the like. But I think he has to be, unfortunately, due to the situation that he inherited, has to be a pro-recovery president. He's got to get our country back on the right track, which I feel he's doing. But you have to remember, we inherited a situation where this country, we had new houses in California that were being torn down. We had fuel at almost $5. And so that type of economy that was so unstable, he's got a lot that he's had to kind of bring us from the brink on.
You think there's a lot of whining going on?
I wouldn't call growing unemployment and growing the national debt recovery. You know, all he has done and all his administration has done is play a game of class warfare and declare war on the state of South Carolina and our jobs here at the NLRB, the EPA, HHS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, give me a break. So is the president responsible for South Carolina's high unemployment numbers?
He's responsible for them nationally. George W. Bush left the country not in the best shape. Unemployment was at 7.5%.
You're being very kind.
Well, at 7.5%. Barack Obama has America at 8.5% unemployment. And let's look at South Carolina's economy. Yeah. And let's look at what the president has done with the NLRB. He's allowed his administration to be a partisan puppet and to be a partisan pawn of the labor unions and to declare war on businesses like Boeing and our ability to create jobs and our right to work status. And that is wrong.
Part of what the president is doing now in this 5-city tour is talking to businesses about ways that businesses can benefit from some of his policies. You say what?
I think, and Cynthia, I think the president is, throwing out an opportunity. And of course, campaigning is a lot different from governing. I want to go back to one thing that Adam was mentioning as well in this light. The president, of course, with the State of the Union address, is talking about an opportunity where you have now these businesses have to be able to have the capital, have to be able to succeed, they have to be able to operate. Mm-hmm. It's a much different environment than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So these companies are having to deal with quite a bit.
How well received do you guys think the president was the other day? We see him coming in and shaking hands, and everybody wants a piece of the president. There he is with that big old hug to Gabby Gifford's being there, and it was so wonderful to see her. So I think that of course added to everybody feeling something on the day.
I don't want to pay a compliment to the president. It was a very well-written speech. It was one of the best written State of the Union speeches we've seen. And it was a great performance. But right now, America needs a commander-in-chief, not a celebrity. We don't need a Hollywood actor who can deliver lines off a teleprompter. We need someone who is a president of conviction and a conservative.
And I'd like to just kind of dovetail right off of that, Adam. One thing that a lot of time, and I've heard this from Republicans and from commentators as well, that we need someone who can beat President Obama. We need somebody who's a great debater. So I agree, we do need someone who can be a great leader. And I think that's exactly what we have in President Obama. We don't need someone who can just beat President Obama, who can just be a great orator. We need someone who can be a true leader and not be a flip-flopper.
Do you think that's gotten the Republican Party in trouble, Brian, looking at it from the standpoint of who can beat Obama? Because what we have then, when our voters went to the polls for the Republican primary, I think a lot of those voters were going to the polls with that in mind. And on that day, they felt that Newt Gingrich had the best opportunity to beat President Obama.
Well, just based on the polls leading up to the vote last week, everyone seemed to think it was somebody different. But as Adam and Sam both pointed out, the debates leading into that, the performances by former Speaker Gingrich were overwhelming. They overshadowed everybody else. So that certainly probably played into how that vote played out. So yes, that's splitting a lot of people right now, who they think the most electable is. That's the term we keep hearing, electability. Who's the most electable? I think apparently the jury's still out. Yeah, apparently the jury's it's a different stage in Florida. Well, they like every other state.
They like Mitch Daniels now. And he's just really, really popular?
He is, but he did something that we have not seen from anyone else in the field that the media's paid attention to. John Huntsman tried to do it, and the media just did not give him the time of the day. And that was prepare substance, not sizzle. And you saw Mitch Daniels get up there. It was not the most exciting speech you'll ever see. It wasn't something that you'd run out of the locker room saying, let's go win an SEC championship game.
But it made sense.
But it made sense. He just said, let's lessen the loopholes. Let's lessen government. Let's lower taxes. Let's let businesses create jobs, and let's get the economy moving again. It made a lot of sense.
Some people want Mitch Daniels to enter the race. What do you think, Sam?
I say have at it. Have at it. Honestly, and you talk about Huntsman, and I think to a certain degree, Ron Paul and Santorum have the same struggle, trying to make sure they're as heard as Romney and Gingrich. But honestly, I think if Governor Daniels was to get into the race, he wouldn't make any sound bites. He wouldn't get an opportunity to really be heard.
What do you make of all of this talk, Brian, about the fact that the president actually launched his campaign? Is there anything wrong with that?
I don't know if there's anything wrong with it, but
On
when
the
we're supposed to be talking about going forward in the plan for the country. I can see how some people might have some problems with it.
Yeah.
When you're talking about how to let's just get the country rolling. Yes.
Yeah, and then he goes on a 5-city tour, and you say
Yeah.
we don't need a rock star, but he's being received very much like that in other parts of the country.
Let's talk about the ratings. Fox had Fox had the best ratings of the night with American Idol. President Obama's State of the Union address had 37.8 million viewers nationally, down from 52.3 million in 2009. The ratings are down. He might be a rock star, but he's not selling out arenas right now.
Quickly.
I agree with that. That's a shame for the country. This is the President of the United States. Regardless of Democrat or Republican, we've got to pay attention to what's going on in our country and get back to substance.
That's it. We're going to come back. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk about the political landscape, but we're also going to talk about the impact it's having on state lawmakers. Representative James Smith joins us when we come back. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Sam.
You're watching On Point on Watchbox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own Watchbox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on Watchbox. Brian and I are having a conversation today about the national implications of South Carolina politics, what it means to even the State of the Union, and also we want to look at the implications of what's happening in the South Carolina General Assembly.
Absolutely.
Representative James Smith joins us for that part of the conversation.
We've had a good conversation the past two segments about that, but we got to think about what does it all mean here?
That's right.
When all this plays out, the elections are over, both the primaries, we get a nominee, and then we go head to head in the general. What happens? What does it all mean here? And that's got to be what we're thinking about under the dome right now here in Columbia.
Right. Brian, Cynthia, it's great to be with you.
Thank you.
Good to be a part of this discussion.
Well, there's a lot going on.
There is.
So first tell us what you think of the primary, then tell us about the State of the Union, then what's happening over there.
Well, there's certainly a lot going on. We've enjoyed the circus, as your guest spoke of earlier. It certainly had a wonderful, positive of economic impact on our state, and we're all glad to see that, Republicans and Democrats. But I think it is very telling. This was an unusual result, but it was interesting to see, given Newt's history and given the often proclaimed status among Republicans as the party of family values. It appears as a result they must hate the mainstream media more than they hate Newt's infidelity, because that's obviously seemed to win out the day. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
So.
It seemed to.
Judging by the response, and it was kind of surprising to hear all of the cheering coming from the audience, and the audience not really minding so much about the infidelity.
South Carolina crowd's much different than what you're going to see in Florida, as we've already seen with these debates.
That's right. That was very interesting too to see that, and
it almost had a reality show quality to it, a TV show. But what I think the contrast is, and that's what you look at, is this these two candidates deboning each other and really going at each other. I think is in the long term going to harm their potential in a general election. And you see the president focused on the issues that matter. He gives a right on point State of the Union address, focusing on the challenges that we all face, no matter who we are, Republicans and Democrats, and the need to come together. That's what I think everybody sees in Washington and in Congress, which Congress now has the highest unfavorable rating it's ever had in its history. And it's because the refusal to work together. But the president's calling Republicans and Democrats to work together and focus on the issues that make a difference. And I think that's why you're seeing his numbers increase. You're seeing optimism in the economy increase, and you're seeing good numbers in terms of unemployment. So that's encouraging.
It's been a little concerning, hasn't it, Brian, the way we've watched our Senate and our House not be able to work together in Washington, D.C.
It's been like that since the dawn of time. People just butting heads, but it has been magnified, it seems, over the past few years. In the last couple decades, it's just been more and more of that. And one of the issues we did talk about earlier was the job situation, and Sam made the point of there was a horrible situation that was inherited by the president, but how long does that fact hold up?
Yeah.
We need results at some point, right?
We do, and I think you're seeing improvement clearly. And I think as far as our state legislature and the agenda that's happening in South Carolina, that is a real concern for me as a member of the House. We just had the State of the State address, and none of those key components. When we talk about building and improving the economy in our state,
Sure.
it must be improving schools, it must be improving our infrastructure and our workforce, it must be having a competitive tax structure,
Sure.
quality of life issues, and also higher education. None of those were addressed in the state of the state. It was more focused on issues that I think divide us rather than bring us together. Last year we passed the two touted major pieces of legislation passed by the General Assembly were the immigration bill, which was struck down by a federal judge, and then voter ID, which was struck down by the Justice Department. We got to stop focusing on a political agenda, which I see that too often in the General Assembly, and we need to focus on an agenda that really meets the challenges that our state faces.
And we're still talking about voter ID.
Yes, we really are.
Yeah.
But people are really concerned about education, and people would really like to see our lawmakers focus on that and focus on employment and get those unemployment numbers down.
Well, let me tell you, we should. It's fundamental to what we do. So, State of the State address, there weren't two words about public education. The governor's bill reduces per student funding by $100 per student. Our own state superintendent of education gives away over $100 million to other states, which we'll have to pay for. We need to reform and improve the quality of our public education system. We can do it. We know it works, but that's not what's being focused on. Instead, it's these issues that do really nothing to advance the state, but push these hot buttons that I think the Republican majority likes to push. And I hope we will see ourselves come together and focus on what we know is going to improve the state.
We're going to go to break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Representative James Smith about the goings on in the South Carolina General Assembly. You guys stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on Watchbox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own Watchbox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on Watchbox. Brian McConkie and I are talking about the political implications of politics, South Carolina politics on the rest of the country. We've taken a look at the President's State of the Union address, and we're also talking now to Representative James Smith about what the implications are of that on the goings-on in the South Carolina General Assembly. Representative Smith, we talked a moment ago about some of the big things that were mentioned, of course, in the governor's State of the State address. But let's talk a little bit about the talk that we're hearing about the creation of the new Department of Administration and what that's intended to do and where you stand on that.
Sure, absolutely. Cynthia, the bill passed the House last year. It's pending in the Senate. They've been discussing it, I think, now almost 3 weeks off and on in the Senate. Moving about their typical pace, but they've got some time to get it done. And I'm for it. There's large bipartisan support for the bill in some form. I think it will get done, and we do need to reform and improve the way state government works, and I think that will happen. I also think it's really not getting at the heart of the challenges facing our state. We're going to improve, we're going to restructure state government, but it's kind of like rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Costa Concordia, and we really need leadership on issues that deal with improving schools, access to quality health care, and a whole list of things that really going to make a difference and make our state more competitive. Tax reform, we keep hearing a lot about tax reform, but nothing is produced. So those are the areas I think ultimately matter and going to make a difference. But we'll do some restructuring this year. It'll get done.
We didn't hear, as we mentioned, anything about public education in the state of the state.
Right.
Do you see anything from any of your colleagues over at the State House that sees us addressing that in any real way over the session?
Brian, it is such a need, and it will only happen when we have a governor that cares about it. Ultimately, we have a General Assembly that is 170 members who have their own ideas of what the priorities are. The one individual that can corral that group together and focus them is a governor that understands how to use the office and build support and build relationships. The State of the State address is a great opportunity to talk about what we need to do together. We as in the House and the Senate and the governor working together to move the state forward. And that's what's been missing. So we need to get there. We are hearing a little bit about tax reform. There is a tax study committee meeting. But there's been a small forest that has been killed issuing papers and reports on tax reform.
Yeah.
I can tell you a dozen of them that are still sitting on shelves, and some of them have good ideas, but they're not getting done because they need a champion in the governor's office to focus on them. So,
well, tell us this: do the Republicans and the Democrats work together any better than they do in Washington?
I think we do in many ways. I think we, part of that is real interesting. I think it's just spending time with each other. You got to have a relationship. You got to understand, and you got to spend time together. And I think we do that on the case, and there are opportunities for bipartisanship. We also have a constitutional amendment that mandates a balanced budget. So there are issues that we can't get ourselves in that often Congress finds themselves in because of thankfully the controls of our Constitution.
Well, that's going to have to be the last word. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Representative
Good show
Smith.
again.
Always great to be here with you, Brian. That's it for this edition of On Point on Watchbox. Please send us your comments and suggestions to onpointwithcynthia.com. Go to our Facebook page and leave your comments there. You can also follow us on Twitter at Radio Talk. Like us on Facebook at On Point with Cynthia Hardy. Thank you guys again. We continue to believe that when you're informed, you're empowered. Once empowered, you are on point. We're going to see you next week.